This is just a quick content warning that this video contains topics that briefly discuss suicide and a somewhat lengthy discussion on existence that may send you into a spiral of existential dread, but hopefully not. Also, spoilers for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once for the first time a couple of weeks ago and somehow existed in this universe that did not have any sort of spoilers for it for me, any explanations, or anything like that. You can call me Astro. I have no degrees, education, certifications, really anything. I'm just a dude who goblin rants on the internet. And I know, super freaking topical, this movie only came out in 2022 and I'm here in 2024 talking about it, seeing it for the first time. But I really wanted to kind of explore the concepts of absurdism represented in this movie and how it is characterized by the three, I would say, main characters of this story for me. And in like, holy hot dog hands, did they make it like somewhat palpable to really get a grasp on it? So I'm just really excited to talk about it. Before we get started, I just want to say that I am like open for corrections or explanations or expanding on the explanations that I give in the comments because I'm not an expert in this at all. And I'm just giving my like layman's explanation of all these things and concepts. So please feel free to drop a like, feel free to comment, and feel free to subscribe so you can be up to date on when I post videos because it really helps out the channel a lot. And more importantly, I appreciate that you do those things. If I had to compress this film down into a couple of sentences, which is pretty impossible almost to do, I would try to say that it is an explorative journey of ADHD, generational trauma, the meaning of existence, and self-acceptance and actualization. And even though that sentence, like those couple of sentences, are super weighty, this movie does a really good job of making it very easy to comprehend and easy to explore those ideas and concepts without turning your brain into a meme. And that's something I actually hope and aspire to do in this video as we go through this journey of explanation of these like concepts that we're going to be looking at. First, let's define terms. And I'm going to try to define them in their like simplest form because I'm not an expert in this area. I've not done any studies or anything. This is just my layman's explanation. And honestly, philosophy, the pursuit of meaning and existence, is akin to like a multifaceted jewel that you hold into the light where different like rays of light are shining through it, can aspire to different meanings, different explanations, and all of those things. So I'm just trying to make it something that my tortellini-like brain can understand and comprehend and be able to explain to people who are probably way smarter than me, i.e. you. Absurdism, in my very simplistic and layman's explanation, is a philosophical belief that states the universe is irrational and meaningless. It has no rhyme or reason that we can comprehend and therefore is absurd to us, and because it's beyond our rational understanding, it causes an internal conflict of our own agency of meaning in it. Again, I want to express that I am no expert in these areas. I am just trying to lay like a basic groundwork for what I'm going to be talking about in this video. There are three commonly accepted responses to absurdism. That doesn't mean that they're the only responses to absurdism, but these are the ones that I feel like are talked about the most. The first one being suicide, the second one being belief in a higher power or purpose, and the third one being rebellion against the absurd. And I'm going to be giving a brief explanation of each one of these concepts, followed by the character that I believe best represents it in this movie. Suicide being one of the easiest ones to explain out of the three. Now, I will say with a disclaimer, and I am of this camp of people, most people who study absurdism commonly and almost like across the board agree that making an irrevocably like permanent decision in terms of response to this is not the right decision and not one that they would absolutely endorse at all. Myself being a part of that camp, I would not endorse this response. But if the universe we reside in is truly without reason, impenetrably unknowable, and we are a blip on the radar of existence and probably less than a blip, then taking one's own life shouldn't matter because that life within itself is meaningless. Now, again, not a great response. It is permanent, it's irrevocable, and it is avoiding addressing the absurd nature of life and the irrational nature of the universe. We see this internal struggle best personified through Jobu/Joy. Jobu happened to be framed as the antagonist of the film, like this big bad who wants to seize everything, but the reality is Jobu was exposed to all universes all at once and simultaneously lives in every single universe all at once, experiencing all those things. and realize that if all lives, there's an infinite amount of lives, infinite amount of her, and this irrational sense of reality, then her life shouldn't matter. And that weight of carrying all of that knowledge is too much. And so her pursuit throughout the entirety of the film is to find someone, aka a version of her mother, Evelyn, who can truly understand the weight that she carries and also will walk with her into oblivion. And it's not like I believe that suicide was or is Jobu's first choice. I believe that what she really wanted when she tried to create the everything bagel was to try to create this place where she could put all of this information, all of this knowledge that wasn't overwhelming for her, and just kind of store it away. But the reality is that's not how it works. That's not how information and knowledge truly works. Once you know something, it's almost impossible to unknow it. Side note, I also believe that Jobu's journey can exemplify one other response we aren't really talking about, involving in an ironic response to life's absurdity by finding comedy in the ridiculousness of life. So the reason why I say that is because if you watch the outfits that she wears, she's always trying to draw attention to herself. They're always pretty outlandish and actually really cool. I like a lot of her outfits. Pretty much all of her outfits I really enjoyed. They all have this ridiculous sense to her. And in the way that she defeats people, the way that she fights people, there's also this sense of irony to the people's deaths. There's also this sense of comedy to it by making somebody explode in confetti. And then the infamous fight, if you know what I'm talking about, with the tools that she used and things like that. One other thing before we move on to the second response is that it is kind of implied that Joy has inherited Evelyn's sense of ADHD and also this generational trauma of expectations and failing to live up to them. With Alpha Joy, before she became Jobu, Evelyn pushed her to the point where she became Jobu, where she became open to every universe all at once. She pushed her to those things because Evelyn wanted to have her live up to her potential, which I think is something as a parent myself, I can fall into the habit of with my children. I can push them to the point where it's actually more damaging than it is helpful and causes this rift and divide, which leads your kids to either, and myself included this as a response to some of the parenting that I've had, to either push in to try and earn my parents' favor, to earn their respect, to earn their anything, their positivity, or to completely reject all of that and move in the opposite direction. I think in this response, Jobu personifies this need for Evelyn to understand her. And this is why she travels universes, finding and trying to find the one Evelyn that can. The second response is the belief in a higher power or purpose that someone can choose to serve or participate in, knowing that on an individual level, what they contribute is minute, but they believe it has some overarching contribution to the goal or cause in which they choose to believe in, which attributes them with meaning or purpose. Whether that means a belief in God or some religious higher power that calls people to live a certain way or to spread the message to have more people be converted into the religion, or some concepts of human progression, societal progression with advances in technology, ending world hunger, world peace, saving the whales, whatever you want to describe or whatever you want to attribute to someone who has this higher belief in something that is beyond themselves. And having something beyond themselves gives them, that thing that they believe in gives them meaning. Now, the thing about this response is it completely sweeps the absurdity of the universe kind of under the rug and causes people to not even engage it or believe in it. They choose to have this ignorance to it. Because when you actually think about those concepts and take them a step farther, i.e. belief in a higher power, absurdity still applies to those beliefs. But the individual who believes in those higher powers just kind of says, that's not on me, that's on that higher power. My ability, my purpose, my desire, all that is to serve this higher power, and I'm going to let them handle that, or let that concept handle that. Evelyn's husband / Joy / Jobu's father, Waymond, I believe encapsulates this idea where belief in a higher power gives them meaning and purpose. When you look at his journey, even Alpha Waymond's journey, is to find an Evelyn that will save the universe. He believes in some Evelyn, whatever Evelyn that is, he believes in her so much that she is going to be the one to save everything. His belief is for her. Then you can take it a step farther, or even take a step back or step to the side, whatever you want to call it. He believes in the good of people. He believes in the power and ability of being kind to people, even when people don't understand. He encapsulates this idea that kindness in the universe, that understanding of people, that the pursuit of treating people like they are like important and matter more than anything, more than your desires to be successful, more than your desires to be happy, more than anything of that, matters more. Waymond embodies this persistent sense of hopefulness and love. And it is that persistent sense of hopefulness and love that actually ends up saving the life of his daughter and Evelyn herself, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But the reality is he believes in those concepts and those that people should be treated like they matter, that people should be treated with kindness, that people should be treated with understanding, no matter whether they understand or not, so much that he's willing to consistently die for it in whatever universe he's in order to stop Jobu, or he's willing to not let go of those things because of how much he actually loves and cares about Evelyn. Waymond is what I would say the balance or counterpoint to Jobu's nihilism, where there is no meaning in anything. Waymond chooses to find silliness and find hope and find joy and find hopefulness in little things, to the point where he is constantly thinking about other people and thinking about the things that they could be feeling and how his existence can be there to help bring some sense of joy to somebody, some sense of happiness to somebody, some sense of understanding to somebody, because he believes in those values. And so you have a character who best exemplifies belief in a higher power, as in belief in Evelyn and her ability to bring balance to the universe from Jobu, and his belief in the concepts of hope and love and spreading like grace to people. Like he believes in them so much that those concepts transcend whatever universe he is represented in. I mean, even if you look at when Evelyn found the divorce papers that he had filed, it wasn't because he actually wanted to divorce Evelyn. What he tells her is that somebody that he knew filed for divorce, and it actually saved their marriage because it opened up genuine dialogue. And that's all he wants. He lives to make connection to people. And that's what he believes in. Our third and final response that we're going to be talking about is rebellion against absurd. So bear with me. I have to read what I wrote because I want to make sure like I get it right, because it's actually pretty lengthy. It basically boils down to understanding that the universe is cold and irrational, that this existence ultimately is wrought with eternal insignificance for the finite being, and that we should say, screw that. That we live in spite of the notion and choose to ascribe meaning of our own accord instead of the first two options. This response is admittedly absurd as well, because it confronts the notion that there is no greater meaning, rationality to existence head on, and just decides to create one no matter how fleeting or irrational a response it may seem. So essentially, realizing that the universe has no greater meaning, you choose to ascribe your own personal meaning to it, not pushing it off on some higher God or being or thought or idea, and not choosing to end your existence. You decide that in the moment, that in everything that you do, you're the one who chooses the existence that you have. You're the one who chooses and ascribes the meaning to it. This is best exemplified through Evelyn, who we see go through this journey that Jobu goes through of nihilism. Now, Evelyn is layered, like super layered, and I suggest that if you haven't seen this movie or you've only watched it once, please watch it multiple times because it deserves that. But she is, and I think they talked about this, that she represents like undiagnosed like ADHD. We can see this with like the job that she has and how she tries to claim certain hobbies or failed attempts at stuff to be something that's work related, whether that's singing, drawing. I think she was trying to give lessons at some point. And as somebody with ADHD, let me tell you that it was truly painful to watch this movie because I related to it so deeply watching Evelyn go through these things. You see her having a hard time being able to pay attention and listen at some points. You see that she gets stuck living in these other existences, these other universes, well, different versions of Evelyn, which for me can symbolize like daydreaming and that kind of stuff that I get lost in as well. The other thing about Evelyn, and this is more on a personal note, that I think that she does a very good job as a character, the way that she's written, summing up the millennial experience, where we went from, at least my generation, went from people who were playing outside to no internet, to watching internet happen, to watching cell phones, to watching this technological age and being promised this future that was ultimately robbed through us through various other crises and various other things and experiences. I could probably talk like in a whole video about that, but I won't do that here. We watch Evelyn go through so many experiences in this movie, and I think that she best represents this third option for quite a few reasons I'm about to talk about. This version of Evelyn was the version of herself that never accomplished anything, and so because she never accomplished anything, because her existence, if you really want to go there, was truly meaningless. It had no meaning because everything that she tried to do for herself never happened or never actualized. She was able to be this empty vessel to counterbalance Jobu, who was full of every existence everywhere. And then we see Jobu be, as she realizes who Evelyn is, walks her through the realization and knowledge, or forbidden knowledge, if you want to call it, of existence, of every universe existing everywhere, and that everything is happening all at once, and that Jobu, is experiencing it, which leads Evelyn to looking at the everything bagel and experiencing it all herself. I really think that the dynamic between Jobu and Evelyn is really well done because it represents this generational trauma. See, Evelyn carries and unintentionally passes on this sense of not truly being accepted for something they intrinsically are. In her case, it's being born a female. You see this with the montage where her father is super disappointed that she's born female. She unintentionally passes this on to Joy, which in her case, not only being born female, but constantly downplaying Joy's and not allowing Joy to express something that they intrinsically are, which is gay. And I think the reason Evelyn does this is not to further that disapproval that she's constantly felt from her father, whether that's being born female or moving away and leaving her family behind, or having a daughter that doesn't traditionally fit into the norms of that society. And I think that this internal strife of acceptance is passed down to Jobu in a way that causes this visceral need for her to find some version of her mother, some version of Evelyn that will truly understand her after experiencing so many lifetimes of loneliness, of consistent loneliness. The Evelyn that we follow throughout the movie is very dismissive of the people around her, of making connections with people, genuine connections with people, because she feels lost in most of this movie and misunderstood. And honestly, like someone who had so much potential or has so much potential that they never had the opportunity or chance to live up to, which again is a common experience with people who have ADHD. People who struggle feeling like they have all this potential to accomplish all these things, and if they could just focus and ratchet down and focus on one thing, they'd be able to be successful. Now, when Evelyn sees the everything bagel, which I think it's very interesting that when they go into that little slip space or whatever you want to call it, all of the people have veils over their face except for Jobu and Evelyn, when they act, because they're the only ones who'd be able to truly grasp what they were looking at. And we see Evelyn, when she looks at it, realizing that everything is existing, everything, everywhere, all at once, that nothing, she comes to the same conclusion that Jobu comes to, which is none of this matters. Nothing matters. If what I am, who I am, what I'm doing, where I'm at truly is existing on multiple different levels, no matter what, it just doesn't matter. So why should I care? And the thing that brings her out of this, as we're in the final conflict of the movie, is Waymond and his hopefulness and his joy and his love for Evelyn and his love for embracing the moment. His belief in those concepts are really what pierce through the dark veil that Evelyn has over her eyes, that no, if everything everywhere doesn't matter, if every universe is happening all at once and there's all these different versions of myself who is successful in all of these things and all of that happening, that no matter what existence I have, there's always somebody doing something better, or there's a version of me that lived, a version of me that didn't, or a version of them that lived or didn't, or whatever you want to call it, if there's multiple infinite anything, then in this moment, I am going to choose that the moment I live right now, the moments I have right now, are what matter most. And because everything else is so insignificant, the moments that I have, the moments that I can have a hold of and grasp on and live myself, are that much more significant. Evelyn chooses to rebel against the absurd by having and treating and embracing each individual moment as significant and meaningful in a meaningless universe. And it's because of that she chooses to be present in each moment with joy, instead of allowing her thoughts, feelings, desires to be lost in the nothingness of the universe. That in whatever universe she's in, she is going to choose to be present with Jobu with joy. And in that, allows herself to help other people embrace those aspects of embracing every single moment that they're in. And I think this is really beautifully done in the fight scene where she gives all of these people such good, genuine things to live for, genuine things to hope for, genuine things to aspire for, whether that's love, relationship, connection, like all of those things with people as she's fighting them. And I think it's done so beautifully because it represents this idea that if we dive too deep into everything is meaningless and nothing matters, and we're going to have this outlook that everything is meaningless and nothing matters, and so therefore we should not care about ourselves or anyone around us. And I think that is a very counterintuitive way to live your life. And it is this sense of choosing every moment together, choosing to make everything meaningful, that brings Jobu from the brink. Jobu wanted to be let go of. She asked to be let go of because she didn't want to shoulder this concept, didn't want to shoulder this knowledge. But it is Evelyn, and then not only Evelyn, but Waymond, and then not only Waymond, but Evelyn's father, who finally gets to accept her, Evelyn, and then by proxy accepts Jobu for who they are, that pulls Jobu out of this darkness and allows her to also embrace every single moment, everywhere, all at once, with her mother being truly seen and understood and accepted for who she is. In the end, we see that Evelyn's choice to be present in each moment she has is what allows Jobu to choose to do the same and ultimately shed this hopelessness, even though everything is happening everywhere all at once. It's in that they can take solace in the fact that no matter what, they will always have each other and an infinite amount of moments to share with each other, which leaves us with the acceptance that in this universe that is filled with unlimited rationality and meaninglessness, how we spend our finite time and moments means that our existence matters that much more. That's going to do it for me. I hope I made sense to you. Like, I know that I can get a little bit rambly, but I really love this movie and I could not recommend it enough for you to watch. So if you've made it this far, I just want to say thanks for watching, and go ahead, if you could be so kind, to leave a like, subscribe, share, leave a comment if you agree, disagree with what I'm saying, or if you want to expand or anything. I don't know how it works, but you know what? I'm here for it. And I appreciate you more than you ever know.